Hello, my name is Alexis Pagala, and this is my presentation on mental health with veterans. I used to have a friend in high school who had a father who committed suicide, and this was due to his mental health not being addressed and directed after he served his time in the military. I know that the family was devastated, and I know that having this information with me made me very concerned on why he was not given the proper care he should have, especially because he served time in our United States military. According to Phillips D. Last Access November 13th of 2020, there has been a 31% decrease of mental health diagnoses among veterans from 2004 to 2016. We're going to learn the importance of accessibility for mental health care for our veterans, the normalization of mental health care for veterans, and the access they have currently and what we can do then. We will look at the problem, the effects, and the solutions. Our problem is that veterans experience barriers to mental health care, causing veterans to commit suicide, to have substance abuse, and ongoing PTSD. There have been 5 identifications for these barriers. These barriers include the concern of what others think, financial, personal, and physical needs, or obstacles that the VA system may not be able to provide, or a lack of confidence in that VA system or healthcare that they have. These attitudes, so there's stigmatized attitudes towards mental health care that prevent veterans from approaching or even accessing mental health care in the first place, because a lot of times they feel that they're weak or inferior as veterans that have served, because they don't think that they should get help and that they're perfectly fine, when in reality what they go through and what they experience in their time in their service is very detrimental, and it affects them heavily. Now that we have discussed the problem, let's take a look at the effects. There are 3 significant effects. Veterans are committing suicide due to the healthcare disparities. There's a prevalence in substance abuse for these veterans, and PTSD is a very large portion of these problems. So, for committing suicide, all veterans are at risk, but they have found, or it has been found, that there is problems with 18 to 22-year-olds committing suicide on a daily basis who happen to be veterans as well. Veterans aged 18 to 44 are most at risk for committing suicide, and the likelihood of veterans above that age or over almost doubled compared to non-veteran counterparts. These groups consist of individuals who have the worst experience to their access to mental health care services. According to the 2008 survey of health-related behaviors among active duty military personnel, last access November 13th of 2020, 47% of active service members engage in binge drinking, which, as a daughter of a veteran or someone who's previously served, I've seen that a lot of times, instead of talking about issues or personal problems, they can and have resorted to drinking as a solution to figuring out what's going on in their head. 11% of these respondents for the survey misused prescription drugs, and 30% reported smoking cigarettes. Now, cigarettes may be legal, but they're still not good for your health. The use of cigarettes, they lead to lung failures, and binge drinking can lead to liver problems. So these things are very, very detrimental to veteran health and health in general, but since we're talking about veterans today, that's what we're discussing. For PTSD as an issue among veterans, it's addressed, and we have a lot of information on it, but a lot of these times that PTSD ranges from 5 to 20%. They don't include people who receive treatment, and people who don't receive treatment end up with symptoms like suicidal thoughts, and sometimes these suicidal thoughts can lead to actual suicide. So that's something that we should be very aware of and know that we need to fix. Now that we have discussed the effects, let's take a look at the solution. The solution is by reducing these barriers that we see for veterans. The reduction of barriers for this type of care is very necessary for veterans to be able to stop suicide, binge, or the enhancement of drug use. And PTSD is very apparent for veterans. So oftentimes they experience these things because of all the traumatic experiences they have in their service. But the solution to this is that there are policy statements that give resolutions to suicide prevention, comprehensive healthcare programs, and accountability in the provisions of health and welfare with all these mental illnesses and non-discriminatory coverage for these vets. Leave the door open. Thank you. So the second portion of the solution is to expand high-quality mental health treatment. So the VA has recently invested in the creation of some toolkits and training programs and other resources that help private providers help address these things among veterans and vets alike. With this investment, we see prevention of many issues that veterans have and face during and after their service. So again, this includes the suicide prevention, the drug use prevention, and any symptoms and anything to do and related with PTSD. So today we learned why it's imperative for veterans to have access to proper mental health care services. We looked at the problem, the effects, and the solutions. According to Phyllis D., last access November 13th of 2020, there has been a 31% increase of mental health diagnosis among veterans from 2004 and 2016. And as someone who has seen other families be affected by unwellness of someone's mental health, especially veterans, I know that these things are important, and these barriers should be worked on constantly in order to help our veterans and people who serve for our country. They have an important role in families and how we go about our military services, and it would just be better if the barriers that we had would fluctuate or decrease, so then we can have a better opportunity for most people who experience these type of things. So that concludes the end of my presentation. Thank you, and that's it.